list of top 10 poorest countries in the world 2022. There are variations all over the world and the economic one cannot be left out. There are countries that fall to the extremes. It is sad to say that most of the poorest countries in the world are found in Africa. Below is a list of the top 10 poorest countries in the world. Number 1. Central African Republic. This country's GDP as per 2017 seconds reports lies at $3.1 billion. Its GNI per capita is $663, whereas only very few countries in the world have their GNI per capita below $1,000. Despite the country having lots of resources such as gold and diamond, political instability, coups, and corruption that came in after independence has really dragged its economy to the floor. Most of the people here live in rural areas, with 90% of those who live in urban areas living in slums. It is quite hard to access electricity. The country's average life expectancy is 52.9 years. Number 2. Niger. The country's GDP is $19.9 billion, whereas its population is 21.5 million. Here, the GNP per capita is less than $1,000. Most people live in rural areas. There is so much corruption and political instability in the country. Number 3. Burundi. With the GNP of $7.3 million, over 87% of the population lives in rural areas. After independence, there were civil wars between the two tribes, the Hutu and the Tutsi, fighting each other. The result was that there were so many deaths and political unrest. Up to now, only 10% of the population has access to electricity. The country has a very high mortality rate. Number 4. The Solomon Islands. This is an island country located in South Pacific with a population of 616,000 people. The GDP of the country is $1.3 million. The country has been through civil unrest since the 1990s. There have also been wars with other neighboring island nations. The country's average life expectancy is 71 years old. Number 5. Democratic Republic of Congo. This country has a GDP of $65.7 billion and a population of 81.3 million people. The country is well endowed with resources such as gold, copper, and diamond. However, these really don't help much in the economy because there were wars and political unrest that affect the general economy. People have had to resort to agriculture so as to fend for themselves. The majority of people live in rural areas with no electricity. The average life expectancy is 60 years. Number 6. Haiti. It is located on the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. After colonial rule, the country was left in the hands of the colonial people due to the debt they owed them. This brought in political unrest. To add to it, natural calamities such as hurricanes came in. With a GDP of $18.23 million and a population of 11.1 million, the country has had to depend on farming. The average life expectancy is 63 years. Number 7. Malawi. This country has a GDP of $20.4 billion and a population of 18.6 million. 70% of the population live on less than $2 a day. The country also has very high cases and spread of HIV/AIDS, leaving many children as orphans. The life expectancy here is 63.7 years old. Number 8. Liberia. With a GDP of $5.5 billion and a population of 4.7 million, this country is one of the poorest countries in the world. Civil wars and coups in the 1990s have really dragged it down. The country also has political instability, and corruption is the everyday term. Many people have no access to electricity, and a large portion of the population is undernourished. Number 9. Madagascar. It is an island nation in Africa that has a GDP of $36.2 million and a population of 25.6 million people. After the country attained its independence in 1960, the country saw itself going through political unrest and coups. Despite being a tourist destination, the country still heavily depends on agriculture. Number 10. Gambia. This country has a GDP of $3.2 million, a GNI per capita of $1,471, and a population of 2.1 million people. The country has stable political environment, yet it is performing poorly economically among the poorest countries in the world. The country heavily depends on agriculture.